after he interviewed with Abby Phillips over at CNN and she got him together, he had the unmitigated gall to go on over to Joyann Reid. Yeah, the Joy Reid. And she did not disappoint. This is how the interview started.
Now by Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Congressman, thank you for being here. We played that lengthy segment. That is what you posted on your social media. The part of what you said that people take issue with is this line, which I'm going to read back to you again. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative-minded, but black people voted conservatively. But it is that during Jim Crow, the black family was together. That's what people have taken issue with. What are they missing?
Frankly, what's really happened is that you have, Democrats and you have the Biden campaign, and some in the media want to twist my words for political purposes. The overarching issue is talking just about black families and why you're seeing a trend of black people leaning towards Republicans in this election cycle and probably in election cycles to come. And part of that, in part, is that when you're raising families, raising kids, etc., you're now thinking about all of the public policy issues, all of the economic issues, all of the education issues. And that's leading people to have divergence in political thoughts. That was the only point. The stuff that comes up about Jim Crow and twisting my words, saying I was being nostalgic or saying that Jim Crow was good for black people, that's all political spin. It's a lie. It's gaslighting. And that's truly unfortunate.
So here's the challenge, Congressman. You started out talking about your family, talking about your mom, talking about being raised, and you on your own brought up Jim Crow. In fact, you said Jim Crow 3 times for emphasis. It wasn't the media or the Democrats or gaslighters who brought up Jim Crow. It was you. You brought up Jim Crow. So
now, in the video that I did on yesterday, side note, if you didn't see the video that I uploaded on yesterday in regards to Byron Donalds and his statement, it's because TikTok suppressed it. Y'all know how TikTok does, right? I'm a black woman on this app talking about political and social issues, and I'm providing sources that will further educate you on the subject that is being discussed. And in that video on yesterday, I broke down part of what Byron Donalds had to say, because part of what he had to say was a lie. Black people voted more conservatively during Jim Crow from 1878 to 1960. Black people voted more conservatively. I had to break that down. I broke down some of the laws that were implemented during Jim Crow and how they were designed to treat people as second-class citizens, to subjugate black people. Yeah, and I made a point that Byron Donalds could have stood on part of his statement that black people are more conservative in their line of thinking, that the black family was stronger under Jim Crow and black marriage happened more often under Jim Crow. He could have stood on that. He didn't have to bring in Jim Crow, but he did. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? There's only one reason that I can think of for him to do that, and that would be to muddy the waters of history, to purposefully be intellectually dishonest, to jump on board with diluting how barbaric white people treated black people at a certain point in history. That was his purpose, because we all know he didn't specifically say black people were doing better in Jim Crow. He didn't specifically say that. But to tie Jim Crow into one of the positive aspects of the black family, to tie that in to the Jim Crow era, you are trying to insinuate that black people were doing better because they were married during Jim Crow. But it doesn't end there. Joyann Reid goes on to say this in the interview.
Also said, and I'm quoting you again, during Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative minded, but black people voted conservatively. Black people weren't allowed to vote at all during Jim Crow.
Well, first of all, there were areas in the United States where black people did vote. It wasn't universal throughout the United States. So let's just be perfectly honest about that. I just told you it was not universal.
We know Jim Crow wasn't
There were areas, but obviously black people were suppressed from voting. That's what the purpose of not just the 64 and the 65 voting rights back, but so many others. But let's get back to what I was saying.
So you're inaccurate.
All I was talking about is about black families. No, I'm not being inaccurate.
During Jim Crow, more black people voted conservative. They didn't vote conservative because they weren't allowed to vote. That is the essence of what Jim Crow is.
So again, Joy, I'm going to come back to my original point. It is talking about the family unit, having more fathers in the home, which creates better people.
Last question, and then I'm going to let you go. Last question. We're out of time, but I'm going to give you one more question. During Jim Crow, could your family have existed? You are in an interracial marriage. Your wife is a white conservative activist. Could your family have existed at all during Jim Crow?
No, it could not, Joy, and we all know that. But that's why I am blessed to live in America today as opposed to America during that time. But we cannot ignore the realities of not having fathers in homes. That is important for black people today and all people today as we move forward for a better America.
We are out of time. What I'm grateful for is that we do not live in the Jim Crow era and that fathers do not face the kind of lynching.
I'm very grateful of that.
Perhaps don't bring up Jim Crow when you're trying to make that example. Representative Byron.
Shout out to Queen Joyann Reid for getting him two together. And I'm going to end with this. Byron Donalds saying that black people were getting married under Jim Crow. The black family was stronger under Jim Crow. I can agree with that. I can agree with that. But what Byron Donalds was doing, Byron Donalds was using the Jim Crow era to insinuate that black people were better off because the black family was stronger, or the black people were getting married under Jim Crow. That's where he's being intellectually dishonest. The Jim Crow era was a different time, different social structure than it is today. There are a lot of older black women that will tell you today that they had to stand for some things back during the Jim Crow era from their husbands so they wouldn't be looked down upon as less than in society. You know, you were viewed as less than, as you were a problem because you weren't married back during those times. Today, there is no such stigma. In fact, black women refuse to be beat on, lied to, cheated on, and have to carry the weight of taking care of the children and paying the bills. So they're opting to remain single today. He's not telling black men to do better. No. He's romanticizing and insinuating that black people are running towards the Republican Party because they're supposed to be the party of family values, because they're reverting back to what took place in Jim Crow. He's also trying to muddy the waters when it comes to black history. That is my opinion. That's all I got. I'll see y'all later.